All right, so looks like we're diving into some pretty headline-grabbing stuff today, huh?
Yeah, we've got Elon Musk, President Trump.
A shakeup in the U.S. government.
Mm-hmm.
We've got articles from military.com and Forbes, even a YouTube video from News Nation, and it's all kind of swirling around these ideas of cost-cutting and firings and controversy.
Lots of controversy, yeah.
So is this like smart reform or a dangerous power grab?
That is the question, isn't it?
That's what we're going to try to figure out.
That's what we're going to unpack.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is we've got this convergence of some incredibly powerful forces.
Yeah.
We're talking a president known for shaking things up.
Right.
A tech CEO who practically embodies disruption.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Pentagon.
Right.
This massive five-sided fortress that represents the heart of U.S. defense.
Yeah.
The potential for both positive change and unintended consequences is huge.
Okay, so let's set the scene here.
Okay.
Picture this. Elon Musk, the guy behind Tesla and SpaceX,
Right.
strolling through the halls of the Pentagon.
It's quite the image, isn't it? The poster child for innovation and private enterprise, now tasked with finding efficiencies
Right.
in one of the largest and most complex organizations on the planet.
Yeah, the Department of Defense.
The Department of Defense.
I mean, this is kind of wild, right?
It is, yeah.
He's leading this initiative called DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. And she's been given a pretty hefty mandate, cut billions from the federal budget.
Billions with a B.
Sounds good in theory, right?
Yeah.
Who doesn't like saving money?
Nobody, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it's our money.
Exactly.
But this raises an important question for you.
Okay.
What kind of efficiency are we really aiming for?
Right.
And who gets to decide?
Okay, so that's where things get a little complicated.
It does get a little more complicated.
The articles mention that DOGE has already triggered lawsuits at other agencies.
Yeah.
There are concerns about transparency, potential conflicts of interest, especially since Musk's companies already have billions in government contracts.
Well, that's right. And that's a crucial point.
Yeah.
SpaceX, for example, has earned billions
Wow.
from Defense Department contracts for their launch services.
Okay.
So this initiative raises some very serious questions.
Yeah. Like what?
Can Musk be truly objective when it comes to finding cuts?
Mm-hmm.
Will he prioritize national security, or could his own companies potentially benefit in the process?
So the article suggests some pretty deep cuts are on the horizon for the Pentagon itself.
Yeah.
They're talking about shrinking the civilian workforce by 5 to 8%.
Wow.
Which could mean tens of thousands of people losing their jobs.
That's a lot of people.
And Forbes even reported on a wave of firings that targeted probationary employees, and it's been paused now for legal review.
Wow.
Can you imagine the uncertainty for those workers?
Oh, it's a tough spot to be in.
Not knowing if you're going to have a job next week.
It's a difficult situation, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's actually part of a larger push by the Trump administration to reduce the size and influence of the federal government.
So you're saying there's kind of a clash of ideologies here.
Yeah. I think you could definitely say that.
Some people see the government as bloated and inefficient.
Right.
And they think this kind of drastic action is long overdue.
Exactly.
They just want to like cut.
They view DOGE as a bold experiment, a necessary shakeup of a system that's become too bureaucratic and out of touch.
Yeah.
They think we need to try something different.
Okay. But on the other hand, there are folks who see this as a potentially dangerous power grab.
Right.
That could threaten our democratic norms and institutions.
For them, this goes beyond simple efficiency.
Yeah.
They're worried about the potential erosion of democratic values, the silencing of dissent, and the concentration of power in the hands of just a few individuals.
Okay, so this is where I get a little confused.
Okay.
Musk is talking about trimming the fat, right?
Yeah.
But he's also advocating for a huge increase to the defense budget. Something like $100 billion.
With a B.
He wants to prioritize things like border security and a missile defense system called Iron Dome for America.
Interesting.
Which would be like a high-tech shield.
Right.
Designed to intercept rockets, which has proven effective in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we square that?
Well, that apparent contradiction is really key to understanding this whole DOGE initiative.
Okay.
It's not just about blindly slashing costs across the board.
Okay.
It's more about shifting priorities.
Okay.
It seems that Musk and the administration are essentially saying,
Yeah.
we want a leaner government, but we're willing to spend more on what we deem essential.
And the News Nation video brought in a retired major general.
Right.
And he had some pretty strong opinions about this.
I bet you did.
He called this budget strategy nonsensical,
Uh-huh.
pointing out that a system like Iron Dome, while effective in a smaller country like Israel, would be incredibly difficult and expensive to implement across the vast United States.
Makes sense logistically.
Right. So that's something to think about.
It is.
Effective defense strategy isn't just about adopting flashy technology. It's about carefully considering context and feasibility.
Absolutely. That's a critical point.
So this general skepticism really highlights the potential for mismatches between technological solutions and the specific needs and challenges of the U.S. defense landscape.
Right. You can't just take a system that works in one place and plop it down somewhere else and expect it to work the same way.
And if you thought things couldn't get any more intense,
Oh boy.
the Guardian piece uses some pretty strong language like coup and gaslighting to describe the situation.
Wow, strong words.
Strong words.
So the Guardian article is taking a much more critical stance.
Okay.
They highlight the potential downsides of concentrating so much power in the hands of the executive branch, particularly when it comes to controlling information and making decisions that affect so many different government functions.
Yeah.
They're raising some red flags there.
Yeah. They even talk about the firing of several inspectors general,
Right.
like the watchdogs whose job it is to uncover waste and fraud in the government.
Important job.
It makes you wonder if this is really about efficiency or something else entirely.
It certainly raises some eyebrows.
Yeah.
And this is where understanding the broader context becomes so important.
Okay.
The U.S. system of government is built on a balance of powers, with checks and balances in place to prevent any one branch from becoming too dominant.
Right.
Critics of DOGE argue that this initiative, coupled with other actions taken by the administration, is tilting the scales too far towards executive power.
So, but doesn't Congress still have like a say in this?
They do.
They have to approve the budget, right?
Absolutely they do. And that's another crucial area to watch.
Okay.
Congress ultimately controls the government spending. You know, they have the power of the purse.
But Congress has historically been hesitant to cut defense spending, right?
That's true.
I was reading in the Forbes article that defense programs are so widespread across the country that lawmakers often resist cuts that might impact their own states or districts.
It's a tricky political situation.
Right.
It's difficult to cut programs that provide jobs and economic benefits.
Yeah.
Even if there are legitimate concerns about, you know, their efficiency or necessity.
Right.
But the current political climate is so volatile and unpredictable. It's hard to say for sure what will happen.
Speaking of uncertainty, the Guardian article also mentions these multiple lawsuits that are challenging DOGE's actions and authority. What are like the legal implications of all of this?
Well, that's right. Several state attorneys general, primarily from Democratic-led states, have filed lawsuits alleging that DOGE is operating outside of its legal authority. Their concerns focus on DOGE's access to sensitive data and its ability to make personnel decisions without proper oversight.
Okay, so that's a problem.
It is a potential problem. These legal challenges raise fundamental questions about the separation of powers and the limits of executive authority.
Okay, so we've got this like complex mix here.
We do.
Of conflicting priorities, potential legal battles, and deep ideological divisions.
Yeah, it's a lot.
What does all of this mean for the future of DOGE and the government as a whole?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
It's still early days, and there are many unknowns. The outcome of those lawsuits will be crucial in determining the scope of DOGE's authority.
Military.com even mentioned that the White House has said Musk won't have to file a public financial disclosure.
Interesting.
So we don't even know like the full extent of his potential conflicts of interest.
Yeah, that lack of transparency really fuels the concerns.
Right.
For those who worry about undue influence and hidden agendas.
Okay, so what about the potential long-term consequences of all this?
Right.
I mean, the articles mention a lot of potential downsides, but are there any potential benefits that we should consider?
Well, that's perhaps the most important question of all.
Yeah.
How will these changes impact the functioning of government, the morale of federal employees, and public trust in institutions? There's certainly the potential for positive outcomes as well.
Like what?
Streamlining processes, eliminating waste, and making government more responsive to the needs of citizens are all laudable goals.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all hate bureaucracy and inefficiency.
Right. Nobody likes dealing with that.
But is streamlining really worth the potential risks?
That's the crux of the matter, isn't it? That seems to be the heart of the debate. It's a balancing act.
Okay.
On the one hand, you have those who believe that DOGE has the potential to make government more efficient and effective. They argue that the current system is bogged down by bureaucracy.
Right.
And that bold action is needed to modernize and improve it.
Okay. But then there's that other side that's deeply concerned about the potential consequences of concentrating so much power in the hands of the executive branch. They worry about the erosion of accountability, transparency, and democratic norms.
And their concerns aren't without merit.
Right.
We've seen throughout history that unchecked power can lead to corruption and abuse.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's why it's so important to have strong oversight mechanisms in place and to hold those in power accountable for their actions.
So where do we go from here? What should we be paying attention to as this story unfolds?
Well, there are a few key areas to watch.
Okay.
First, those legal battles. Will the courts uphold DOGE's authority, or will they impose limits on its actions?
Right.
Second, the role of Congress.
Okay.
Will they assert their oversight role and push back against potential executive overreach? Or will they acquiesce to the administration's agenda?
And then there are the long-term consequences to consider.
Absolutely.
Will DOGE really deliver on its promise of a more efficient and effective government?
Right.
Or will it ultimately weaken crucial safeguards and undermine public trust in our institutions?
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen cost-cutting power plays, legal challenges, and a whole lot of questions about how this DOGE experiment will ultimately play out. Feels like we're at a crossroads here.
Yeah, it really does.
On one path, you have like the potential for a more streamlined and efficient government. But on the other path is the risk of weakening these vital checks and balances.
Right.
And eroding public trust.
It's a tough situation for sure.
It's a tangled web for sure.
It certainly is. And there's another layer to consider too.
Okay.
Remember those proposed cuts to the civilian workforce of the Pentagon?
Yeah.
Well, the military.com article raised a point that I think is relevant.
Okay.
What happens to national security if we suddenly lose a significant portion of experienced civilian personnel?
Oh, that's a great point.
These are the people who provide essential expertise and institutional knowledge.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in like the big picture ideas, but sometimes it's the practical on the ground implications that really matter.
Exactly. And let's not forget about the potential impact on whistleblowers either.
Oh, right.
If government employees fear retaliation for speaking out against wrongdoing, it could have a chilling effect on accountability and transparency.
This whole situation really makes you think.
It does.
It's not just about like dollars and cents. It's about people, principles.
That's right.
The future of our government. It seems like this so-called efficiency drive is anything but simple.
You hit the nail on the head. There are so many factors at play, and the potential consequences, both positive and negative, are significant.
Yeah.
It's a story that deserves careful attention and critical thinking from all of us.
Well, this deep dive has certainly given me a lot to think about.
Good. I'm glad.
I'm definitely going to be following this story closely.
Me too. And remember, this is just the beginning.
Right.
The situation is still unfolding, and there are sure to be twists and turns along the way.
Okay, so one last thing before we go.
Okay.
You've been looking into this issue, doing your research. Now, I want to leave our listeners with this. Given the speed and scale of these changes, what are some potential long-term consequences that we haven't even considered yet?
Oh, that's a great question.
What about the impact on innovation if the government scales back its investments in research and development?
Right.
Or the potential for increased polarization and distrust in our political system? These are just a few of the many questions that I think remain unanswered.
Those are excellent questions to ponder. And it's a reminder that any attempt to reform a complex system like the U.S. government requires careful consideration of both the intended and unintended consequences. We need to be vigilant, ask tough questions, and hold those in power accountable.
Absolutely. Keep exploring, keep questioning, keep an open mind.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for helping us unpack all of this.
Happy to be here.
Until next time.